Well, you've decided to homeschool, and we talked about deschooling. I think it was a couple weeks ago. And a lot of people don't understand what deschooling is. So I thought I would just bring up a couple of suggestions that I've used over the years for deschooling. And this time of year, everybody's in school and you're sitting there going, I don't know what to do. I haven't gotten my curriculum yet. And you want to do it like school, but you said, no, I don't want to do it like school. So you're trying to figure it out. What I do every year, I did this with my kids, and I learned this from another homeschooler, is we would pick up, I don't know if you can see these composition books like at the dollar store or Walmart, and see there's a pretty one, you know how girls like pretty ones, there's this one and this one, or you could use the spiral bound. And what I did is I would tell my kids, like if they were younger, I would help them out with it, but I would tell my kids to sit down and write some of the things that they were interested in learning about. Computers, in science, in history, and write it down for me. And we would keep this journal, but also this journal for the beginning of the year with deschooling, we would go on nature walks, and I would have them go sketch something out. Like if they saw something interesting during a nature walk, go sketch it out, and write down what they think it is and go do a little research on it, and spend a little time on the computer researching some of the topics that they had as well, alongside with me. Now with the little ones, I would sit down and write it down with them. What do you want to learn? And of course you have to be careful because some of the little ones get a little goofy on some of their subjects and everything. And another thing you could do is, we talked about it earlier in the earlier segments, pull out some board games like Scrabble or Boggle, or even what is it called? Pictionary, and things like that. Pull those out and have fun with your kids. Get to know your kids, because when your kids were in school, you didn't really get to know them, and this is a great time to get to know them and find out what they're learning. The way they learn, are they hands-on, are they visual, or are they a textbook kind of a person? These are some of the suggestions that I had for deschooling, and I would love to hear what Sandi and Nitza have, because I know you two homeschooled as well.
Well, I will let Nitza give a quick comment on that.
Well, one of the things I used to do is, especially with the smaller children, is I would have them just draw or color whatever they were listening to, whatever story we're reading, even if we're just reading the Bible, or they could get up and they could pantomime and show us their pictures and drawings. And there would be a learning comprehension to see if they heard and could, give you feedback back on what they were learning. So.
Yeah, that, and I also did copy work with them, with scripture verses or what they're reading about, so that they would work on their penmanship and also their spelling skills. And during that time, you get to know your children a little bit better as well, especially when you're sitting there playing those board games like Scrabble. Even if you have a little 5-year-old and you have your other children that are doing the Scrabble, let your 5-year-old help you put the tiles down, because they've learned from doing with you. Don't push them aside. Let them join in with the older kids. And that happens a lot because we think that we're supposed to the Spanish tongue does not work on certain words. So there you go. There's one word you found out. You put kids in those boxes, and we don't need to be doing that. It's a family, and we're to be together.
Well,
play math and learn math.
Yeah.
I know that for me, Jonathan was a very whole body learner. He never sat still in a chair. He'd be on his head. He'd be, and to get him to see and touch, to go, maybe have class outdoors or learn outdoors or bring it, now there are times when I put him in a chair and it seemed more like a classroom, but there are other times, especially when he's younger, that whatever you're teaching, you go out and you explore it. You explore it outside. You go around your house. You're learning shapes. If they're young, you go around your house and you find every shape. That's what I'm doing with Mariah right now. We have circle day, or we have square day, or we have red day, and we go around the house and we find everything that we can do. And she's just 18 months, but she's doing it. So
yeah, I'm one of my sons. He's like your son, Jonathan Michael. And one day I saw him sitting still, which amazed me. And I was like, what is he doing outside sitting there? And he was kind of laying with his hands, like this on the ground and just kicking his little legs up. And I'm like, okay, something's up. So I went, and he had his notebook sitting there, one of these composition books. And I said, what are you doing? He says, Mom, be careful, be careful. I said, be careful of what? He says, you're going to kill the ants. He was sitting there watching these ants. He put a piece of bread on the ground where these ants were, and he was sitting there watching these ants work. And he was just spending time watching them go back and forth. And every once in a while, he would draw a picture of them or write something down that he wanted to know more about ants. So
Wow.
even
That's
something like that we think, oh, that's a waste of time, and some parents would have kicked that away. That's not a waste of time. That's them.
The frontiermen and that came across the country, Lewis and Clark and Captain John Smith, they mapped out and wrote all that information down for people to use. That was educational. And I mean, how did they study all the birds and classify them and all the animals? Yeah.
I love
exactly. And my daughter tried to make a raft to go down our creek. and it was so much fun to watch, because she would build it and she would put it in the creek and it would sink, and she goes, okay, I got to do something else. And she'd find different things. And she was learning like an engineer. She was learning like Lewis and Clark, because people have to go across a river. They had to build a boat. They had to figure out how to do these things. They didn't have a textbook teaching them. And this is how they learned. And it was so much fun to just sit in a chair and watch my kids, their different abilities of how they learned. And I had my oldest son, he was always with his nose in a book. I had to sometimes take the book out of his hand and say, run, play, so
I love it.
It's fun. But this is something to look into and do, because you will see how amazing it is, and it will really free you up.
Exactly. Sounds good. Well, thank you, Joe, for this homeschool minute.